Welcome to another special edition of Daily Airline News, focusing on the search for MH370. I am Jeffrey Thomas, and I'm welcoming my co-host Richard Godfrey in Frankfurt, Germany. Good morning, Richard.
Good afternoon, Jeffrey.
It's a great afternoon. Finally, the rain has arrived. We've had 5, 6 weeks of hot weather. So now we've
Okay.
been absolutely overwhelmed with comments and questions from our update on Captain Martyn Smith. Before we get into those questions, Richard's got a small correction to make that I'll leave that with you, Richard.
Yeah, I said yesterday that Ian Betts was deployed to Atsugi Air Force Base uh, in Okinawa, Japan. I couldn't even read my own script. What it actually says is Ian was deployed to Atsugi Air Force Base and Kadena Air Force Base on Okinawa, Japan. So Atsugi is much closer to Tokyo, and Kadena is on Okinawa. Sorry for that, and it is now corrected.
Sure, good stuff. So Azadra 9231, thank you so much, Richard. With all the flurry of activity, it begs the question, why couldn't they find anything? You may have covered the capabilities of those aircraft, and I have missed it. But once MH370 had sunk in the ocean, would there be any point looking for it using Poseidons? Do you need such advanced aircraft for spotting floating debris?
Yeah, the Poseidons only followed the MH370 flight route from the equator down to around 20 degrees south on this sortie. The assumed MH370 crash area is between 30 degrees south and 36 degrees south. And we are hoping that the Poseidons flew another sortie covering the search area all the way down to 36 degrees south. But we haven't yet finished the investigation for the further days after the 8th of March. So the Poseidons flew 15 hours after the disappearance of MH370, later on the 8th of March. And now we're considering whether they flew also on the 9th and the 10th of March. We're showing the screenshot of the Poseidon aircraft and the flight path on the 8th of March. Now, the distance from Diego Garcia to the seventh arc is 2,038 nautical miles. So there and back is 4,076 nautical miles. With a maximum range of 4,500, that only leaves 424 nautical miles, which is cutting into the fuel reserves. And without an in flight refueling, there would only be an absolute maximum of around 50 minutes on station at the seventh arc. We're showing another screenshot which gives you the overview of Diego Garcia right across to the seventh arc and the crash location that Whisper has identified. Other crash locations are further south, and it would be rather obvious. Perth in Australia and Pearce Air Force Base would be much closer and would be a much better bet.
Right. So Dan, November Tango 2 Yankee Bravo. G'day, gents, and thank you again for another interesting and thought-provoking segment in the ongoing but never forgotten situation. To Richard, why do you suppose there was such a discrepancy in the number of Poseidon aircraft from both the American and Australian search teams on or around March 18th, 2014 and afterwards? Thank you both. From Dan in Victoria, Canada.
Well, Dan, it's called obfuscation. The military do not like to reveal too much about their capabilities and the details of their operations. On the 2nd of April 2014, the Pentagon announced it had spent over $3.3 million on the MH370 search between the 8th and the 24th of March. And that went to funding ships, helicopters, surveillance flights, and it came out of their humanitarian aid budget.
Mm. So, Dixie 3, hi, Jeffrey Thomas and Richard Godfrey. Thank you for your ongoing analysis of the search for MH370 missing aircraft. Can I please ask why the rescue phase was not using something like Northrop Grumman Reaper drones that could be dropped from an aircraft and stay on station a lot longer than any manned aircraft? I believe the NG drones can also be refueled in flight. Maybe current technology could change how they would search for a missing aircraft crew and passengers. I know from my experience we did things differently back in the 1980s. I still hope Whisper will help in MH370.
Yeah, good idea, Dixie. Reaper MQ-9 drones were briefly stationed in Diego Garcia in 2022 for Operation Valiant Shield. The permanent bases in the area since 2009 are the Seychelles, Qatar, and Djibouti, which are further away from the seventh arc. And even the extended range ER variant of the MQ-9 with the external fuel pods and a clean configuration, which would mean without the sensors that they would need for picking up survivors on the ocean surface, that has a maximum range of 1,400 nautical miles. So it would also require in-flight fueling. And I guess they didn't want to operate out of Pierce Air Force Base in Perth, which would have been more straightforward.
Mm. Earl KT, has there ever been any discussion or submarine activity of the time period for landing? I appreciate with sensitivity this would be difficult, but I've always wondered what information they could hold.
Well, there are definitely submarines in the Indian Ocean all the time. The UK Navy had a submarine in the area, and according to the ATSB report, a submarine was also tasked to investigate the area and was unable to identify any ULB transmissions.
Jonas Saunders, 7646. I hope I haven't seen this question asked previously. Can those search and rescue aircraft detect the pings from the black boxes? Given deep ocean plus the altitude of those aircraft, would it be possible? Thank you both for these superb programs.
Yeah, Poseidon can deploy sonar buoys, and we showed that yesterday. And once deployed, these sonar buoys have hydroacoustic sensors, which are relayed back to the aircraft, so they can pick up any hydroacoustic activity underwater.
From TD Braun, 6837, Richard, it was unclear to me how far behind MH370 these three Poseidon search planes were at the time when they did the search. Also, given the close match between the Poseidon track and the Whisper track for MH370, are you implying the US Navy was using Whisper data in their search route?
Well, nice idea. But the MH370 flight departed on the 7th of March 2014 UTC time and crashed just after midnight on the then early in the morning on the 8th of March UTC. The Poseidon flights departed 15 hours later from Diego Garcia. And I'm not implying the US Navy used Whisper. I'm implying they had the Inmarsat satellite data and they were using their over the horizon radar data.
Yeah. So Alan Everhart, 4141, what is the positioning error of this whisper technique?
Yeah, excellent question, Alan. People often ask about how precise or how accurate or how detailed the Whisper data is, but those are actually three different concepts, scientifically speaking. Precision tells you how exact Whisper is, how consistent the results will be, and the answer to that is 3 meters. Um, Accuracy tells you how correct a whisper is and how close it gets to the truth. And the answer to that is within 30 kilometers of MH370 crash location. And finally, the granularity of the whisper data is quite coarse, and it is only every 2 minutes. It's also a noisy sensor, so you need several detections to be sure.
Yeah, good question. So Stuart, looks like Stuart Luscott Evans, 2216. Isn't this assuming that Poseidon activity was connected to MH370? What's to say it wasn't just routine military submarine surveillance? And also, Scott Crawford chimed in, 4148. Exactly. And what about XXYYZZ aircraft? And what are, I should say?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
It is perfectly possible, Stuart, that this was a routine operation, but one that was apparently not known to the Australian Oceanic ATC, covering that flight information region.
Mm.
The timing, 15 hours after the disappearance of MH370, and the track of the aircraft aligning with the MH370 flight path is quite a coincidence. And X, Y, Y, and Z, Z are simply labels we have given to three unidentified aircraft which match, surprisingly, the exact profile of a US Navy Poseidon aircraft, which were known to be in the area.
Yes, it's way too much of a coincidence, isn't it? 15 hours later, they're tracking down exactly the same course.
Yeah, well, in any coincidence, you have to ask what makes the incidents co.
Yes, exactly. We're getting pretty deep, Richard. Okay, Joseph Cooksley, 3219. The Royal New Zealand Air Force had P3 Orions in the mix during the greater search for MH370, but time frame not sure. And so did Australia as well.
Yeah. The Australians contributed four Royal Australian Air Force AP-3C Orions. The Royal New Zealand Air Force had, as you say, Orions also in the mix. There were two civilian Bombardier Global Express jets from Australia, a civilian Gulfstream G500, another uh, Gulfstream G650, and a civilian A319 Airbus. I actually have all the AMSA search and rescue flight operation data for all of the SAR flights under an NDA, which they kindly provided to me.
And the Chinese chimed in with a very, very noisy Aleutian 76, so, which made its presence felt.
I, th I
Um,
think I think there were 46 aircraft in total from
yes, there
all
was.
all over the place.
Yep, absolutely. It was crazy. Checkmate's handle. Thank you, but thank you for this one. I've long been curious about what info the USA had at the time. But since they didn't go further south in that first outing, I guess maybe they didn't have the information of the actual crash site. One further question though, because the times mix me up, were they in the air at the same time as MH370 or the next evening? I think all of this information relates to the next evening, so they may not have been aware of MH370 as it actually transited south past them. There needs
Yeah.
to be a bit of clarification there.
Yeah, the Poseidons were not scrambled during the flight of MH370. Their flight was 15 hours later, and it would have taken 8 hours for the Poseidons just to fly from Japan to Diego Garcia. So this didn't happen immediately. And only fighter jets in the vicinity of the diversion over Malaysia or in the airspace of Thailand, Indonesia, or India could have intercepted MH370. And we're told that no fighter jets were scrambled.
Denise Eldridge, 2936, very interesting research. So, is it possible the US did track 370 on its Indian Ocean journey? I don't recall any official acknowledgement by the US, which is perhaps understandable due to the need for security and all that. But it does open up some questions. For instance, were they able to track the plane till the very end of its flight, or did it go out of range of radar? If 370 did indeed go out of radar range, can we pick up any clues from the track that the Poseidon aircraft did take? What I'm getting at here is, does the US know more about the track of 370 than they have publicly acknowledging?
Yeah, I think the US and several other countries know more. The US has not made any public statement about specifically being able to track MH370, but as I mentioned earlier, the Pentagon issued a statement on the 2nd of April 2014 that they had spent $3.3 million on MH370, including surveillance flights. So you don't spend 3.3 million, without doing something. We have pointed out previously that a number of countries have data on MH370, and there is a long list of missing data which could help the MH370 investigation.
Yeah, indeed. Brian Bosmworth, 7555. To me, there is no doubt that Diego Garcia military radar would have picked up MH370. So to me, they know where it was and also where it went down. Question: is my view here a fair comment belief? Keep up the great work, gents, as it's so interesting to know all this information.
Yeah, Brian, the US, China, Russia, Australia, France, UK, Malaysia, India, Thailand, Japan, New Zealand, Canada, Saudi Arabia, they all know more than they are saying. And we did an episode on the huge data missing. For example, Jawn was supposedly not operating on the night of the 8th of March 2014. When questioned in the Australian Parliament, the defence spokesperson said that the Jindalee operational radar network segment was switched off at the time the MH370 aircraft was transiting in the Indian Ocean. And they also explained that Jawn is a directed but not continuous surveillance system. In other words, it's not always on and it's not a global radar. It operates by steering long range beams into specific sectors, and that is done on a scheduled basis. So it's not continuously monitoring every part of the sky. The US position is that over the horizon radar assets at Pine Gap and elsewhere and its SOSUS assets in the Indian Ocean neither detected MH370 nor can it confirm any such detection, which is a bit of a mishmash statement, which means we know, but we're not telling you. And they further deny, due to the classified nature of its surveillance systems, any further comment.
Yeah. So, next question. I won't try and read out the name. How does ATC not know about traffic in Emirates area? And another one, and now I'm wondering how it is possible to avoid mid-air collisions with an unidentified plane.
Yeah, so let's be clear. We did not say the Australian Oceanic ATC did not know about these flights. We quoted Captain Martyn Smith saying that he queried this with the Australian ATC, who denied any knowledge. So they may have known, but they weren't saying. When we contacted the Australian ATC, they simply responded no comment, which doesn't tell you what they knew or what they were willing to say.
Yeah. HWH 888. I was wondering exactly when searches began for MH370. Was it after the flight didn't arrive at expected time? Was it after it disappeared from radar? Was it after the flight path changed from north to 180 degrees to in the southerly direction?
Yeah, none of those three options. The
Yeah,
distress message was sent out on the 7th of March at 22:32 UTC. And this is 5 hours, 12 minutes after the last radio contact and the disappearance from secondary radar screens of MH370. And it was 4 hours, 10 minutes after the last military radar detection. The distress message should have been sent out the latest by 1810 UTC, which is 4 hours 22 minutes earlier. The Malaysian authorities were in a state of confusion and without any coordination between ATC, the airline operations, the civilian search and rescue services, and the military authorities. The airline system they use predicted the location of MH370, and they thought that prediction was actual and real time data, and they were wrong.
it really was a complete shambles, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, it just beggars belief how
well,
um,
incompetence or complacency.
probably a mix of both. And
Mm.
the tragic part about this is that has continued all the way. It's whether it's picking up debris, whether it's not bothering to do this or not bothering to do that, whether it's leaving a contract to search on the Attorney General's office for 12 weeks. I mean, these things are an absolute disgrace in my view. I just it leaves you bewildered. It really does.
Yeah, as we said
Yeah,
before, it beggars belief.
it does. So, viewers, that's all we've got time for today. Um, there are more questions, and I'm sure this episode will prompt more questions. And Richard's agreed to come back tomorrow and we'll try and answer all the questions that are outstanding.
It's a
Viewers,
long list. Last time I looked, there were about 60 of them, and they're growing all the time.
yeah, which we look is fantastic, and we love your support, and we love your comments of support. They are really very heartening, and we're trying to do the very best we can with these questions because there's some fascinating questions. They really are. So, viewers, please subscribe if you're not already. Please like us. Please keep the comments coming and the questions coming. And Richard, thank you very much indeed for your time today. And viewers, we'll see you all tomorrow, please tune in for another discussion about what Captain Martyn Smith saw and the update. Thanks,
You're
Richard.
very welcome, Jeffrey.